Here's the bottom line. You want a war? You're going to get one.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
You know, I can really get used to this. What's this, about 4 or 5 weeks now I've been able to do that, and it never gets old. It just never gets old. So once again, everybody, form the V as Caesar Sam frickin' Darnold gets put on the screen for everybody to enjoy. Drink it all in, fellas. 4-0, going for 5-0. So, I'm sure Eric wants to be a part of this. So let's bring Eric on in.
It is unbelievable how you put that up every single week when you talked like the world was coming to an end when they brought Sam Darnold on, and then J.J. McCarthy gets hurt, and Sam Darnold was going to be your guy, and you were ready to lose your mind. And now all of a sudden, here we are. He's amazing. Check this out, guys. Unbelievable.
Sam frickin' Darnold. And when you know it, next to Lambeau Field, all these Packer fans, they were just devastated after this last game. So, there's like a park right next to the stadium. So, we caught one of the Packer fans just kind of staring off into the sunset in total disarray. But I caught a glimpse of and I'll just throw their picture up on the screen just to give you an idea of the mood in Packerland after that game. That was Packer fan right there, man. That was the Packer fan.
Well, let's face it. Of course, I'm on different threads, whatever, and And somebody, the Packer fans were not very happy. And, the excuses were flying. We had to miss 2 field goals and our quarterback was hurt and all this stuff. That's what it took for you guys to win. That's fine. You wait until next time we play. And I'm thinking to myself, Minnesota did everything they could do to give that game to you. You should probably just feel good that it wasn't a blowout, because time and time again, and I know, you were texting my dad, and you guys are big Viking fans, and every single time that opportunity comes to Minnesota to stand on somebody's throat, you guys just sit back and say, okay, beat us 10 yards at a crack.
20?
And then pretty soon, guess what happens? Game gets
28
tight.
to nothing. Going into the half with no reason for Green Bay to have any hope at all.
Yep.
And they muff. What do the Vikings do? They muff a punt return that gives the Green Bay a cheap touchdown right before half.
Yep.
Then they get the second half kickoff. And then, once again, rearing its ugly head is the old prevent defense. You basically put a big goose egg on the scoreboard for the whole first half. Your defense is doing just fine. Why do you need to change anything? But you totally change your whole philosophy on defense. There was even one drive there in the fourth quarter, and I swear to God, the fourth quarter took like 2 hours.
Right. And you're right. That game just would not end.
They literally went 96 yards in 5 plays. Took a minute and 30. I mean, even in your best prevent defense that you can even imagine, has to do better than 5 plays, 96 yards in a minute and 32, doesn't it?
Well, you would think. And the biggest problem that I have with the prevent defense, especially, and I don't know if this is a Minnesota thing, because I've watched a lot of Minnesota games, on TV, whatever, and they seem to slip into it a heck of a lot earlier than any other team in the NFL. It's like, oh my God, we're winning 28-7. Let's, to me, it's like, I would definitely not go into the prevent defense in the third quarter for dang sure. And I would play hard until, maybe they got another touchdown. To me, it makes no sense to go into a defense like that and just let Green Bay Packers chew it up.
It was really the double whammy, because not only did they change their philosophy on defense, but then on offense, they go from basically moving the ball up and down the field the whole first half to second half. They completely change to let's keep the clock running, and basically took the ball out of the air.
Right.
And so only when Green Bay gets within a score do they open it back up again. And then what happens when they open it back up? Minnesota goes right down the field, and they only got a field goal. But at the time, that's all they needed was that field goal.
Listen, a couple of those drives, field goal. This is what I understand. We've gotten to the point in the NFL where there are some coaches, Campbell, that believe that field goals are bad. Points are hard enough to come by. You could go back, if I go back to last Sunday, and let's just look at some of the scores and tell me that points aren't hard to come by. There's 1, 2, 5 teams that scored over 30 points. There was also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams that scored 20 or under. 11 teams scored 20 or under. So points are a premium, and I don't understand the philosophy that is happening in the NFL we're not putting a premium on points. I mean, think about it. How many games have you watched, Ed? Maybe not Minnesota games, any games where it's 4th and goal at the 2, 3, whatever. Okay. They go for it. They don't get it. And then in the 4th quarter, all the announcers are talking about is, man, I bet they wish they had those 3 points back.
And not only that, but as you get more and more parity in the league, you're finding that more times than not, games are decided by single digits.
Oh, yeah. 1-score games.
When you have the opportunity to put points on the board, why do you keep going for it on 4th down, especially early in the games when momentum is so important?
Over half the games are decided by 1 score. I mean, so, you throw a field goal in there, and now all of a sudden, instead of driving down and needing a touchdown to win, you need a field goal to maybe tie. Like, I don't understand. I get it. Field goals aren't as sexy. Field goals aren't as, whatever. But points are points. I mean, you asked Campbell about the NFC Championship game last year. I mean,
he won't admit it.
No.
He won't admit it to this day, but
3 points would have been real big.
You could have been hoisting the trophy.
Yep.
If you had kicked a few of those field goals against San Francisco.
Yeah, just take the points. I mean, I just don't understand it. And I think it's becoming more and more prevalent that, you just got to take the points. You got to take the points and pile it on as much as you can. And that's where Minnesota, I think, made their mistake, was they just, if you got up 28-0, you were doing something right.
Oh, absolutely. Especially at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, at Lambeau, you're up 28-0. The crowd's out of it. They're thinking about leaving at halftime. And then right before halftime, here come the Minnesota Vikings we all know and love.
Yeah, we'll get into that in the NFL segment. But I should have known that. I texted this guy earlier today, and I said, you got a company function. I realize you got a company function, and so I need to do the Big Ten report for him. Is there anything you want me to say? Well, I should have known, with Rutgers and Nebraska playing this week, that he would basically tell his boss to go pound sand, that he was coming on the show tonight. So let's bring him on, but we probably should start off. That's right. That's the only reason why he's showing up tonight.
That's exactly right.
Chad, how's he drop kick Coyle?
What's up, fellas?
Man?
Welcome, Chad. We thought we were going to miss you tonight.
And then let's round things out here. Let's give this guy his due, because who's number 1 in the nation today?
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. So let's give him his day. We even give him a drum roll. That's it.
I'm surprised he doesn't take his hat off every single time.
Here's the build-up. Here's the build-up. And here he comes, Brett the Hitman.
What's up, Brett?
Nobody's celebrating bigger than after that. What looked like an absolute beatdown, and then Alabama said, "Here, Georgia, come on in, make this a game."
If there could be 2 games that were mirrors of each other, that would have been the Minnesota Viking game and the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Brett
we had them the whole way.
Not according to your text, you did.
Yeah, no kidding. Brett.
Let's see.
Yeah, I was texting the guys. What was it when it was like 28-15? I said we're gonna blow this freaking game. I
We're
said we're
gonna
gonna
blow
blow it. I
this
said this is
game.
gonna be so embarrassing.
Every other text was, we can't stop the run. We can't stop the run.
I'm
Throw
trying
some
to.
sand on him. Throw some sand on him.
You were more nervous than a $2 whore in church.
Oh,
I tell
man.
you what, you was scared.
I'm frantically going back
Oh,
to
Oh,
all of
what I
what
tell y'all, I was
Back
as
in that
nervous
chain.
as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, we're blowing it. We're blowing it.
So without further ado, before we get too much into that Georgia-Alabama game, let's unveil the latest SEC rankings by Brett the Hitman. Here we go.
SEC, SEC, SEC.
Take it away, Brett.
Knock it out of the park.
Unfortunately, I had to put Alabama at number 1. I wanted to leave them at number 2 so bad, but I figured I'd get kicked off the show because, I had my brother-in-law and buddies like, hey, you think we're going to be number 1? We're going to be number 1, aren't we? And, of course, my response is, who cares? I said, as long as we make the playoffs. I said, I don't want to be number 1 until at the end of the year if we're holding up a trophy. But I had no choice with that game, and I'm going to tell you what. The game plan and how Alabama came out in the first half was probably one of the most impressive games I've seen in my life, the first half. But, when you go to that locker room, and I could sense it going to halftime with the missed pass interference and Bama not stacking on, I said, it's going to be a different second half. And you got to give Georgia all the respect in the world. And Kirby Smart, look, they just kept chopping. And I would be shocked if Georgia will not be in the playoffs at the end of the season. Texas, you had to slide them to number 2. They had a ho-hum game with Mississippi State. They haven't really played anyone, so to speak, yet. They did go to Michigan and handle those boys, but we'll see. We'll see. Texas, to me, if Alabama and Georgia wouldn't have already played, I would still have Texas at number 1. Tennessee, number 3. They look elite on both sides of the ball. Georgia, I slid to 4, although I would be very surprised if they don't make it to the playoffs and do what they always do. Missouri at 5. The Sooners at 6. What a crazy comeback win in Auburn for Oklahoma, the pick 6. And just, I think they found a quarterback, but moving forward, they're still going to have to put more points on the board because they're not going to be playing very many Auburns where the quarterback likes to throw the wrong team. What was the joke I made? If you tell the starter at Auburn to pick a number between 1 and 10, he always picks 6. Yeah, they've had a big problem with that this year. LSU at 7. The Aggies bump up after taking care of Arkansas and that annual classic at Jerry's World. That was a back and forth, real close game. In Ole Miss, poor Lane Kiffin, and I follow him on Twitter. So does the Bottom Line, and he hasn't tweeted much this week. And he took a lot of. I was on social media quite a bit Saturday night, and he was taking it on the chin. Kentucky, played Georgia. Very tough in Lexington, was 1 or 2 plays away from possibly upsetting Georgia 2 weeks ago, going to Oxford, and they just got the job done. Ole Miss just, after the first drive where they marched it down the field, you thought, oh, this game's going to be exactly what we expected. Well, it wasn't. Ole Miss, it's like they went to the locker room and never came back out. South Carolina at 10, moved Kentucky up to 11. Arkansas, man, I was kind of rooting for them against the Aggies. The Aggies typically get the best of them in that game. I still think Arkansas could have a couple upsets before the season's over with, though. They've got some talent on that team with That quarterback is explosive. Petrino is again running their offense. Vandy at 13. They've got number 1 coming to Nashville this Saturday. So don't know what kind of team's going to show up. That could be interesting. Vandy's a gritty bunch. Poor Florida at 14. Do we really even need to? Poor Florida. That's all you need to say. Auburn at 15. Hugh Freeze's record after this many games is worse than Brian Harsin, the one that Hugh Freeze replaced. And yeah, by the way, all the Auburn fans said, "Oh, when Alabama hired DeBoer, that he was just the Washington version of Harsin." Well, how'd that work out for y'all? Auburn at 15 and Mississippi State. You just shake your head and say, you know, when Vanderbilt's 3 spots ahead of you, you know your program's headed in the wrong direction.
So I
That's
got a
my
question.
SEC power rankings. And one more time, roll tide.
So I got a question for you, Brett. You know, they could say, you can say Kentucky, given Georgia, that you got a number 4, a hard game that, you know, Georgia just squeaked out barely.
Right.
You know, you could say that was a pipe dream and that was just a once in a lifetime shot, no big deal. Then they turn around and they hand it to Ole Miss, who at the time was a number 2, number 3 in your rankings, I believe.
Right.
So after back-to-back games, you got to start thinking maybe Kentucky's a little bit more than all that, and you got them at number 11.
It was. I think they are finding themselves with their quarterback, Vandergrift, one that transferred from Georgia. He's improved. The defense is tough. They've got a couple NFL first or second rounders on that defensive line. Still having trouble getting past what South Carolina did to them. They've already got 2 losses. I mean, South Carolina went into Lexington and beat them by 4 touchdowns and just mauled them. Now, if Kentucky continues to win, I mean, they are a borderline. They've got a heck of a defense, and if that quarterback continues to improve, you know, there's no telling who they could knock off later on in the year.
I got to say,
Oh, come
someone
on.
important has to bring out the jersey. I just was going to say, you know,
Yeah,
have
we
you
don't
ever
care
seen a
about that.
jersey with a better number than that? I mean,
I am
number,
surprised. I've seen a lot better.
there's only
jerseys.
so many Jared Allens in the world, right there.
I am surprised, Brett, that you did put Alabama over Texas just for personal reasons. You know, the thing that scares me about Texas is, tell me another college program outside of maybe Alabama, maybe not, and Colorado, that Texas's backup would not be starting for.
Oh, Alabama's got a pretty good backup as well. There's Debbie. Yeah, I agree with her. Man, I wanted to put Alabama at number 3. I'm not going to lie, because, you know, I'm very superstitious.
Well, if you was Chad, you would have had Alabama like an 8.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have moved them down. You'd have still have them below Georgia. Just
In fact,
Well-
I don't even know if they'd have been in your top 10 if it had been Chad.
Yeah, unfortunately, Alabama's got to go to
That level, I'll
Knoxville
put
in
them
a
at
few
1.
weeks, and we've got to do a better job against the pass if we want to try to knock the balls off in Knoxville. That's going to be a wild game, and Texas. You know, these are pretty much the same teams we mentioned, you know, weeks before the season started that we thought were going to be playoff contenders. You know, and they pretty much showed themselves. Ole Miss got knocked off, but they've still got time to get back up at that status. I mean, they've still got Georgia. They've still got some other big matchups, but Ole Miss absolutely laid an egg.
Yeah, I mean, Charles says Texas could win it all. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a lot of big hitter games yet to come. I got to say, so far at this point of the season in college football, there really isn't much going on for really top 15, top 20 football. So,
well, and what Brett said, I mean, he's right. The concern that I have about Alabama as well is You know, they gave up, I think it was 439 passing yards.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Brett, you would probably know this. I do not. When is the last time Alabama's given up 430 plus passing yards?
Well, when Nick kind of adjusted with Lane Kiffin and Sarkisian running the offenses, he kind of went from the old power ball to where we kind of spread it out a lot more, and we got in some high scoring contests and slinging around stuff back then. I will say this, not making excuses. You know, Georgia was down so far that they had to do it. I mean, the kid, I don't even have the stats in front of me. He probably threw 55 times.
He was 27 of 50, which I would argue he was probably about 10 of 30 in the first half. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and he was sacked 3 times.
That was my main concern, is I felt like even though we got to him 3 times, we didn't get quite enough hits on him. But, you know, you can say 430. We did get 3 picks.
Correct.
So, I mean, you're going to get yards when you sling it around that much, but Alabama got 3 turnovers out of it. Now, I was more surprised that we didn't get more pressure on him. That's the thing I'm a little more concerned about. We've got 2 freshmen in the secondary. We've got Malachi Moore, that's a veteran, and then we got Sapp that transferred from Michigan that's done a great job already this year. We've got talent like we always do, but our secondary is the youngest it's been in quite a while, and I think it's going to rear its ugly head in Knoxville and maybe a couple other matchups this season. But the key to me is getting that quarterback off his spot. If you can get him off his spot, you're going to get some picks. And our offense, if we've got both tackles in and healthy, Alabama's going to be a tough offense to stop. And what about Ryan Williams?
Huh.
Oh, that kid who caught that pass.
Oh, the moves that he made on that. Oh, my goodness, man.
I saw somebody, he's 17.
Yeah, he's 17 years old.
Oh, my word.
He reclassified. He's supposed to be in high school right now.
He is the same age as my junior that is in high school.
Well, I tell you, you know, you're talking about getting heat on the quarterback and not being able to cover. They go, you know, they're hand in glove. If you're not getting any pressure on the quarterback, no matter how good your defensive backs are, they can't cover forever, and they're going to get open.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you can't rush the passer, you sure as hell be able to cover forever.
But Chad, you know this because it's the same anywhere. And in the SEC, this is where I think Texas will be tested, and some of these other teams will be tested. You know, Georgia is probably the team, or you can reverse that and say Alabama is probably the team against Georgia that can match up front. You know, whether it be on the defensive line or the offensive line. That's where Texas will be tested, and that's why I can't wait for those games to happen, because I want to see where Texas is at up front. Can Texas match Alabama? Can Texas match Georgia up front and win those games and look like they have, you know, through the first 5 weeks?
Georgia goes through Austin in about 3 weeks, maybe. That's going to be something. That's going to be a wild matchup.
That'll be a big-time litmus test.
I tell you what, when on that long pass play in the fourth quarter that Alabama scored on, I almost thought at first it looked like he was going to pull a Jim Marshall, because when he caught that ball and did his first slow turn, it was like he was going to start heading the wrong way. And then he about that quick, he flips around and goes back the other way. That was good stuff there.
Yeah, that was for sure. I mean, that game was when it was, I don't know, it was 30-7. I think they got the safety or something.
Yeah.
I looked at a couple guys I was sitting with, and I said, you know, if you guys were to watch the Bottom Line show, I would have told you that Alabama was going to handle Georgia at home. And then Georgia, as soon as I said that, Georgia just kept picking away. And I thought, well, I guess there goes that.
So before we get into the Big Ten, we got to give you a little more. We got to give you a little bit more, Brett. You're probably gonna have like 100 people standing around your car thinking the band's playing. But
Yeah, Marty said 12 million. I think it was 12.7, I think, million people watched the Alabama Georgia game.
It just blows me away at the viewership that the NFL gets. It is incredible.
well, it's incredible when you talk about the similarities in the Green Bay Minnesota game to the Alabama Georgia game as far as the score.
Yeah.
Because as you talk about 3 interceptions that Alabama got, I mean, Minnesota got 3 interceptions off Green Bay, and you look at the games, and it's just uncanny how similar they were as far as points scored. Anyway, I'm not going to say the rest, but
right. No, you're exactly right on that. You're exactly right.
But anyway, let's move on to the Big Ten, because Chad just can't wait to talk about that Rutgers Nebraska game. So let's get the Big Ten rankings up here.
I'm still not seeing Nebraska in the top 10.
I'm still, let's say the 4-1 Nebraska Cornhuskers still haven't cracked the top 10.
Cannot crack the top 10. But okay, go ahead, Chad.
Okay, so we decided not to do my my Big Ten top 12 because the top 10, top 12.
Oh, you snuck him in at what, 11?
They can't.
He did. He stuck him in at 11. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, is this serious?
Yeah, it's serious. Have I been wrong yet? Have I been wrong yet? I'm asking you guys.
Well, the pressure's on now because Rutgers.
Okay, Nostradamus.
Yeah, let's see it.
You guys sit here and say this, and then I end up being right every week. And you guys don't come back next week and say, "Oh, Chad, you were right. We're sorry."
Oh. See, how do you like that big dog treatment, Eric? How do you like that?
Yeah. We'll see here when we do the Big 12.
So here we are, but the top 10. We got Ohio State at number 1. They haven't done anything to brush off that. We did have a little movement here. Penn State's up to 2. Michigan's up to 3. I dropped Oregon a little bit. I'm not convinced they're really Big Ten ready. So we'll see. We'll see. Then we got the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers sitting at 5 still. USC down to 6. Indiana's up to 7. You got Iowa, got your Hawkeyes up there at 8. This should make you happy. Why?
Well, you got
because
next week they're out of the rankings because they're going to get thumped by Ohio State.
I don't know. We'll see. They I tell you what, Iowa usually plays defense. So
Iowa, I think defensively can keep that game respectable as far as points scored goes. I just don't think Iowa's got the.
It's gonna be like
to do anything.
It's gonna be like 30-3. And at 9, you got those Fighting Illini of Illinois.
It's only negative 19. Ohio State's only 19.5 point favorites. So
I tell you what,
look at that. They got a chance.
So
you're saying there's a chance.
Was old Swami here? Did I hit the nail on the head with Illinois? They're playing the lower of the upper tier of the Big Ten. Their first true test, and they just didn't have what it took.
Yeah, so they dropped down to 9, and then we got Washington sliding back into the top 10 at 10. I'm telling you, I didn't put Nebraska in the top 10 because they're just not ready. They're not ready for prime time. As soon as they start beating real teams and winning 1-score games, then we'll get them there. But I'm telling you guys think this is all a joke that I'm doing this anti-ganking, which I'm not denying that I have done in the past. I'm just telling you guys, like I almost know Nebraska as well as Brett knows Alabama, and I'm telling you that they are just gonna shit the bed when it's getting close.
Well, I got to tell you, they keep wanting to say the Big Ten and the SEC are like head and shoulders above the rest in college football. I would say at this point in the season that I agree with the SEC side of things. But when you look at the Big Ten top 5 and
Yeah.
compare it to the SEC top 5, it's not even close to me.
Yeah, agreed.
I think Big Ten is so much below the caliber of the SEC this year. It's not even funny.
Yeah,
I
no,
would-
there's
I would agree with that. I don't
there's
think
no
any
question. I
argument
mean, when you're looking at a top, whether it's Chad's or any other rankings, and you're seeing the likes of Rutgers, Indiana, Illinois. I mean, in the top 10, when you brought Oregon, USC, Washington, UCLA from the Pac-12. I mean, okay.
Whatever
Okay.
happened? Whatever happened to Michigan State?
I
Didn't
don't-
Michigan State used to be
They-
one of the?
that. I'm telling you that they had one of the best coaches in the country, D'Antonio, and as soon as he retired and became the AD or whatever the hell he's doing now, they have fallen and they're not getting up. They're
No.
hitting their emergency response button with that old lady on the floor, and they can't get up, man.
And they can
Well,
help me.
You know when
It's sad. D'Antonio had him was as a heck of a coach.
when
and
you
then-
first heard that Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA were coming to the Big Ten, the first thing you wanted to say was, "Wow, the Big Ten's going to be loaded." But so far, I think the Pac-12 teams have really been insignificant.
No, they're not. Like you said, the lines of scrimmage in the SEC and Big Ten are everything. The trenches, and the Pac-12 teams are just not built like that. I mean, can they make adjustments like A&M did with the SEC? Yes, it's just going to take time. But I agree with you guys with Oregon. They're going to really struggle when you get into the physical Big Ten matchups.
So Henry poses a question to us. He wanted to know what our opinion is of the new Pac-12.
Well, I mean, my opinion of the new Pac-12 is, they scrambled. They scrambled to bring some of those teams to the Pac-12, the new Pac-12.
Right.
But I don't think those teams make the Pac-12 a viable
No.
power conference. I mean, it keeps the name alive, okay, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, what Ed said about the Big Ten here. I think you could put, the top 5 teams in the Big 12, for example, and they would compete. I'm not saying they'd be the top 5 in the Big Ten, but they would compete in the Big Ten, and they would be, they'd be viable. But I don't think you could take the Pac-12's top 5 and put them in the Big 12, and they would be viable. Put them in the Big 10, and they would be viable.
Right.
Put them in the
Well,
ACC.
and you're right.
and
They did scramble. And just think about this, fellas. 4 or 5 years ago, when all this conference expansion and switching conferences and doing this, the Pac-12 was close to getting Texas and Oklahoma and some other big boys over to the Pac-12. And then last year, the Pac-12 had the best season they've had in my lifetime. They had some legit. I mean, maybe not in the trenches on all their teams, but they had a lot of talent in that conference last year and a lot of success. And it's a shame it's gone. I mean, it really is. But gone from what we grew up with.
Right.
But yeah, they're scrambling, Henry, to get they need to get so many teams in that conference. And I hope it makes it, and I hope they can get some other schools in that conference and they can be viable again. But
who are they going to add?
Yeah.
Who are they going to add that's going to bring up their prestige?
I'm with
anybody off the top of your head, can anybody name half the teams in the Pac-12 now?
Well, you got Washington State, Oregon State.
Yeah.
They brought Boise State over, correct? They brought
Boise
Gonzaga.
State.
I think Gonzaga. I mean, not that basketball, but I mean, I outside of that, I really can't.
Yeah.
I agree
with Greg here. I mean, I think I think we all expected Oregon to be better this season. I was still a little leery that they wasn't going to be Big Ten ready in the trenches. But I thought Oregon would be a better team than what they are this year. I mean, I'm assuming Greg's talking about Ohio State from the Big Ten, and then probably Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee in the SEC. I mean, thus far, guys, don't y'all agree that none of those teams have really done anything to change our minds from that when we mentioned it before the season started?
It's early in the season. I mean, I keep saying that, and it's not. I mean,
we're almost halfway there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that they're not going to make as big of an impact as we thought. Maybe they will. Maybe it'll be SC or Oregon maybe they'll make the Big Ten title game. Maybe not.
Right.
I don't think so. But
Right.
I mean, the only real viable team at the moment, and I don't think they've looked that great, is Ohio State. Excuse me. Ohio State's the only one that got any faith that could go and play one of the SEC programs and compete.
And, again, I'm a big recruiting guy, and I keep up with that daily. And I know I'm an SEC guy, but I'm also a realist. I mean, like right now, I think 7 out of the top 8 teams in recruiting this year, right now at this current point, is SEC teams. Every year when we do the NFL draft, they'll break it down per conference. And the SEC always has 20-25% more players taken, if not more than these other big conferences. It just all starts with recruiting, guys. I mean, yeah, you've got to have a good coach,
a pile of money.
You gotta have a bundle of money. But when you start going down these rosters and then go back and look at last year's recruiting class, the year before and the year before, you're going to see Texas, you're going to see Alabama, you're going to see Georgia in the top 5, just about, and Ohio State. I mean, it's.
I think you're right, because even when the portal happens, those guys just float from those teams over to the other teams. And so they either go from, Alabama to Texas, or Texas to
Georgia to Kentucky.
Yeah, LSU, or if it's going to be interesting to see what this new world brings and how everything shakes out. But as far as his original question, about the Pac-12, I think the Pac-12's days are numbered as a premier conference. It's just like I think the ACCs are numbered, and I'm sorry, but I think the Big 12s are numbered. I just think those conferences aren't going to survive as you know them, as we've known them for our entire lives. I think it's going to come down to the SEC and the Big Ten. And, I've said it 1,000 times on the show. Everybody's probably tired of hearing it, but I just think that they're gonna break off. They're gonna do their own thing, and it's gonna hurt all those other schools. And the question is, what does that look like? How does that shake? What do teams do? I mean, because the players aren't going to want to go outside those two. And
Chad,
they barely want to go outside of them now.
I said the same thing before, but we just talked about the disparity between the SEC and the Big Ten. Tell me what the benefit is. I mean, I think we could still make the argument that if you lined up 1 against 1, 2 against 2, 3 against 3, 4 against 4, even in your power rankings, what does that record look like if you go to the top 10 and you match the top 10 from the SEC to the top 10 of the Big Ten? What does that record look like if they all played on a Saturday? Is the Big Ten willing to do that? I'm just asking, because I believe the same thing, but I'm just asking, is the Big Ten willing to jump in the pool with a conference that, even though the Big Ten, has been, conference number 2, are they willing to do that?
They are, because the money would be so massive that how could they not?
Would you see some retraction then? And what I mean by that, would you see Illinois say, I'm out? Would you see a Rutgers say, I'm out? Would you see a
No.
Minnesota say, I'm out?
What's more likely to happen is the Big Ten / SEC is gonna say to Illinois, is gonna say to Maryland, is gonna say to Vanderbilt, thank you, but no. We're going to bring in these programs that are more successful, that are remaining. We're going to bring in Clemson. We're going to bring in Florida State. We're going to bring in Miami. And
That's the crazy thing. Years ago, maybe 10, 12, 14 years ago, Clemson and Florida State really wanted to come to the or did not want to come to the SEC. SEC wanted them. And now they're going around with their hand out, begging to come to the SEC or Big Ten, and nobody wants them.
Who wants Florida State? Who wants to listen to Florida State whine every year? What are they? What's Florida State this year? 1-4.
They're gonna want them, because when it gets down to those two conferences, or however this shakes out, one super conference, whatever it is, those traditional big powers are gonna the conference is going to want them in, and they're going to want in, and those teams that are on shaky ground, to include Nebraska, are going to be nervous, very nervous, because they're going to because somebody's going to have to go. How big are these conferences going to get? I don't know.
Well,
50, 40.
And I said that teams in the Big 12, teams in the ACC. I don't know about the Pac-12, but those
I think
teams,
Pac-12 has given up all. I mean,
yeah,
people have taken all they're going to take from there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else to loot from there.
But
I think that's left is the ACC and maybe a team in the Big 12, but that's about it.
We gotta move on to the Big 12. But
okay,
I think what makes this argument rather obvious is that when you look at Eric's Big 12, and we'll give him his accolades here, because I've seen his ranking, and I know who he's got number one. Mm-hmm. And so you look at who he's got, Eric's Big 12 rankings. You got Iowa State at number one. Okay, you take an Iowa State and you drop them into the SEC.
No, drop them into the Big Ten.
Where are they at?
Because I'll tell you right now, Iowa State can compete in the Big Ten. SEC, they'd probably be right now. They'd probably be somewhere in Brett's ranking, somewhere between 10 and 12.
I think they're middle of the pack in the Big Ten. I think they're bottom tier in the SEC.
You have Iowa at number 8.
That's middle of the tier, dude.
I mean, so
16 teams.
So Iowa State would be 8, then, and Iowa would be 9.
I mean, that's about how the game went, wasn't it?
Well, but what I'm saying is, you can't say that the best Iowa State would be middle of the pack of the Big Ten. I mean, come on.
Oh,
I think they're going to have years. So this is the way it goes for those teams that aren't like Alabama and Georgia. Those teams will have years where they load up, where they have tough years, and then those kids move on. They become juniors and seniors. And then once those kids are juniors and seniors, they have all that playing experience, then you have that spike year or the spike 2 years where they're really good. And then they fall off for 3 or 4 years, and then they come back and they get another group of really good juniors and seniors, and then they spike again. I think that's what you'll find.
But I will tell you,
they're not going to be consistently like those guys.
So if we go to the Big Ten, then, for example, okay, let's go to the Big Ten. When's the last time? Put his Big Ten rankings back up there.
All right, hold on,
real quick.
Guys, this still goes back to what Nick said when the NIL and portal started. He said this isn't going to create parity; it's just going to make the rich richer, and maybe he was correct.
And he's probably right. But let's look at the Big Ten power rankings. When is the last time Illinois has been viable?
But I gotta say,
And I'm
What do you
gonna
mean by
take-
viable? What do
I'm
you
going
mean
to
by
take
viable?
Washington. I'm going to take Washington. I'm going to take Oregon, USC out of there because they just got there this year. I'm saying the original Big Ten. When's the last time Illinois has been viable in anything?
Well, what do you mean by viable?
6-win
They won-
team.
They,
6
they
wins.
won 8 games, 2 or 3 years ago?
Okay, so 2 or 3 years ago they won
Yep.
8 games.
Yep.
Okay, Indiana.
Probably the same.
Okay, yeah, maybe the same. Rutgers.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a lot longer than
A
that.
lot longer than that, right? Maryland.
A lot longer.
Northwestern. You gotta go a lot. You gotta go a ways. Northwestern was that flash in
No,
the
it's
pan
only
a couple
been a
years.
few years for
yeah,
Northwestern.
but if you throw in,
No, wait. If you take out Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, what team?
You're
From the
you're
Big
kind of
12.
looking like the Big 12 at that point.
That's what I'm saying. Like you
Yeah.
can't just sit there and say that the Big Ten
That's
is
what
just
we're
such
saying, though.
a
The
mighty
Big 12
conference.
doesn't have those teams.
I understand that, but if
I
you
don't
put Ohio
think you do.
State, if you took Ohio State out of the Big Ten, what would we be saying about the Big Ten?
We would say that they have
we'd
Penn
be
State,
saying the same
Michigan,
thing we're saying
Oregon.
right now. Is
Yeah.
About the Big 12.
Well, the SEC's got 4 or 5 big hitters, but if you go past those 4 or 5 big hitters, and I think they're just as average as anybody else, you know.
I mean, I look at it this way: Ole Miss, you had them in number 3 last week, right?
It's not a slight against Iowa State. That's not a slight.
I'm just saying the conference. I'm not
slighting
saying just Iowa State. I'm
He's-
saying the conference.
You have an excellent coach, and you have spike years where you get a really good crew of juniors and seniors.
Yeah, and you get a 10
Yeah.
or 11 win season, something like
Yeah.
Yeah,
that.
because we can't buy. We don't have the money to buy players.
That's what I'm saying. That's
but
exactly what I'm
but
saying.
that's no different than 11 of the teams in the Big Ten. They can't afford to buy players. So
I think you're overestimating. I think what you have to compare is the bottom part of the Big Ten, the mid and bottom part of the Big Ten to the mid and bottom part of the Big 12. And that's where I think you're going to see a difference.
right, excuse me, but what
They're not going to have those easier games.
Yes, but what I'm saying is this: if you look at just say Iowa State, BYU, Utah, you're telling me that Iowa State, BYU, Utah this year is not better than or just as good as 11 teams in the Big Ten or 8 teams in the SEC.
Okay. So you guys have sat here every week and said the difference between the Big Ten and the SEC and everybody else is the trenches. That's just what Brett said. So you're saying that their trenches in the Big 12 are going to stand up to that of all of those teams in the Big Ten. Is that what
If
you're
you
saying?
look at, Iowa State.
You're contradicting yourself because
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is Iowa State, their team is built around defense. They beat Iowa. Iowa's one of those Big Ten powerhouses everybody talks
Nebraska
about.
beat Iowa last year. That don't mean a damn thing.
Right, it doesn't. But you have Iowa at number 8. So if Iowa State comes in and they come into the Big Ten, or Utah, for example, Utah's a good team, and they come in and they get, Oklahoma.
Do they have the
struggling with-
offensive defensive line? Everybody just said the Pac-12 doesn't have the offensive defensive line. They can't play defense with the Big Ten and the SEC. And now you guys are you're now you.
I
are
think Iowa
contradicting
State's
them.
probably better off in the trenches than the Pac-12 schools. Not hating, but
Right.
I follow. I'm a night owl. I watch every Pac-12
don't
late night game
disagree with
have
you.
forever. They
But
don't
by
have the
competing-
physicality. They just
But
don't.
by competing, so you're telling me that if Iowa State was in the Big Ten this year, that they would be number 1 over Ohio State.
Oh no!
Then they would be number 2 over Penn State.
No, what I'm saying is to say that Iowa State can't compete in the Big Ten
That's not
because
what
they're
I
in the
said.
Big 12.
Well,
That's
is
not what
ridiculous.
I said. I said they would be a middle of the road team. That doesn't
No.
mean they're not going to compete.
What you said was when the Big Ten and the SEC do their thing, they might take one team from the Big 12. That's baloney.
Finish him.
where does Iowa State fit in here? Top 10. of the Big Ten top 10 teams, where would you slot Iowa State right now?
I think they would push. I think they would push everybody down, but slot them in probably 8, and they would push the others down.
Oh.
I'd have them at 5 or 6.
I would have them. I would put them where Rutgers is at and slot everybody down. But I mean, that's fine. Either way. And like I said,
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
But one thing we recognize right now, guys, if you look at, and we're going over all these power rankings for all these conferences, and my team, Alabama, they might not win another game. I'm not. So just throw Alabama out of the mix. Just ignore them. Other than 4 or 5 elite teams, man, there's not much parity.
Yeah,
I mean,
you look at college football this year, and I see it every week because I pick the games that we're gonna predict every week. The matchups just don't get you excited this year. They're just so far this year. There's just something missing in college football.
Do you guys think that there's, because a lot of these teams don't have like Chad just mentioned, you'll have a solid program that about every 3 years win 10, 11 games and compete for a conference championship. That it's not your typical powerhouse. Well, a lot of those juniors and seniors now went to 2 or 3 different schools. Do y'all think that plays a part?
Oh yeah.
And why there's not, I mean, because these kids are not waiting till their juniors and senior years to play, they're going elsewhere. Is that playing a part?
The bad thing, the bad thing I would say about college football is this. Because of the way that it is set up, think about the last, I don't know, let's just say 10 years. Let's go before NIL, transfer portal, and then now. How has NIL and the transfer portal changed our top 5 or 6 in the rankings? It hasn't changed Ohio State. They've always been there. It hasn't changed Alabama. Hasn't changed Georgia.
It has because like I think we talked about last week, and yeah, sure, a couple of those players that got stolen away from Bama were starters, but the rest of them, it's their 3rd string, it's their 4th string, it's still a bunch of 4-star guys. And so, I mean, it's just like when they went from 108 scholarships or 109 scholarships down to 88. What'd it do? It brought everybody else down.
Right.
Spread everything out. So then you could have the Boise States and you could have all these schools because now they couldn't, Nebraska and Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama didn't get to have 109 kids on scholarship.
Yeah, but now it's payroll. You know what it reminds me of, guys? It reminds me of Major League Baseball. But every year you've got the Yankees and the Dodgers are the 2 that always spend the most amount of money. Well, guess what? They've got the 2 best records in Major League Baseball right now. Don't mean they're going to win it, but they can compete for it every year. And I think I like what Eric has mentioned many a times, a salary cap, but then again, are the other 50 or 60 Power 4 teams going to be able to pay that salary cap that Alabama and Texas and Ohio State and Oregon
means nothing to Iowa State. It means nothing to Iowa. It means nothing.
So that I don't know what the answer is to get more parity into college football. I really don't.
Brett, you made this. I don't understand why an Alabama and a Georgia gets 12.7 million viewers and a run-of-the-mill NFL game gets more. I will tell you why. Because in the NFL, every single year, when the year starts with salary caps and everything, every team in all of us right here
feels like they got a chance.
Every one of us right here, where did we pick Minnesota at in the NFC North?
Every one of us picked them 4 or 5 wins.
Picked them 4 or 5 wins, dead last in the NFC North.
I picked them to go 8-9, which is almost.
You don't count.
Chad's 12 wins for
you don't count, you homer. But what I'm saying is this. When we start the college season, 132 teams, whatever there is in the FBS. How many of those teams can say, oh, this is our year, baby. We got a shot at the title? 6?
A dozen? 10?
Maybe 10?
6 is more like it.
6 is more like it, but let's say 10 on the high side. So
Yeah.
when you say to yourself, how is it that Alabama and Georgia don't get higher ratings or big games in the NCAA don't? It's because of that. And they have done nothing but perpetuate that by how they have things set up.
Well, it's also, there's a lot of factors in there. A, it's very regional. B, the kids don't get, the colleges don't decide where their kids are going to go. They don't draft. The kids
Right.
get to decide where they're going to go. So that's the biggest factor in that entire equation when you compare it to the NFL and the NFL's parity. The players don't decide for the most part where they're going to go. The teams do. And in college football, the kids pick where they're going to go.
Right.
So that's gonna have to be the end of that discussion. We got to get on to picks so we can start our number 2 in the NFL. So let's bring up the first game of the week for college. Number 9 Missouri at 4-0 is that Texas A&M number 25, who's 4-1. Texas A&M is a 1-point favorite Saturday at 11 o'clock.
Brett, who you
wants
got?
to go first?
Brett, SEC, who you got, bud?
I was hoping to go last because I was debating on this last night. Look, and I'm pulling for Missouri because they're, an underdog, and I like Drinkowitz. I like what they're doing up there. And I'm probably wrong because I usually am, but they just have not looked like the Missouri from last year at all. Texas A&M's gotten their feet under them. The quarterback is improved. The only game they lost this year, guys, was the last second game against Notre Dame. I'm gonna take the Aggies at home in a real close one, but Missouri's missing something from last year. I don't know if it's that little running back, that little spark plug they had that is now signed with the St. Louis Battlehawks. I don't know what it is, but give me the Aggies.
Okay, Chad, you go ahead. Now that you're officially on the panel, I don't have to give your pick. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna give me the Aggies. I just think I think Missouri was looking like they were overhyped and can't live up to it, whatever it is, and A&M seems to be finding their stride. Give me the Aggies.
I went back and forth with this one.
Yeah, it was tough. This was
Yeah,
the last game I picked.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the tough. I probably scratched out who I was going to select 2 or 3 times.
I did.
And I'm like, oh, it's Missouri. No. Oh, saying it. No. Oh, it's Missouri. I finally came down to the deal where I was like, it's at Texas A&M. I agree with Brett. They have gotten their feet under them a little bit, and Missouri just doesn't have that. I honestly think they're treading water right now. I know they're 4-0. I get it, but I feel like they are treading water. Like they are holding on to a handful of water, just hoping no drops get let out. So,
Well,
give me A&M.
I can now say that all 3 of you are going to be wrong. Give me the
Homer.
Missouri Tigers.
Yeah,
Homer.
Oh,
He has to live there. He's got
Hey,
Homer.
I'm not a Mizzou fan, so
Oh,
don't-
yes,
don't
you
get
are.
You're like,
That's so fast, my friend.
I
You're
take
like-
Mizzou.
you're like that
Next
guy that-
game.
that's
next
the guy
game
that-
up. Rutgers. Chad
Oh, here we go.
Rutgers.
oh,
Yeah.
Chad, you're up, Chad. We know what you're picking.
So since we got Chad's Rutgers and Chad's Nebraska, I'll let him go first. Who's Chad taking?
Well, I'll
And
tell you what.
Nebraska is 7-point favorites at home.
Yep, 7 points. 1 score game. Give me Rutgers. Nebraska cannot consistently win a 1 score game. Give me Rutgers.
Nebraska. This will be the last time I take Nebraska if they let me down again.
Brett?
I'm taking the black shirts, Nebraska.
I'm taking Nebraska as well. So Chad's
Remember
out on
what
a limb
happened
with
the
Rutgers.
last time this happened? I went against Nebraska. You all picked Nebraska, and who was right?
So we got UCF 3-1 at Florida 2-2. Florida is 1-point favorites. It's a Saturday night SEC Network game. I will go first on this one. I'm taking UCF.
You're taking a
Maybe-
Big 12 team against an SEC team?
Give me the.
Well, we're far enough
University
down the
of
line
Central
here
Florida.
that
Oh.
they could. Who'd you take, Chad?
Give me Dante Culpepper School. Give me UCF.
I'm taking UCF.
Wasn't Gators number 15 on my power ranking?
Yeah, they were.
Oh my God, he's taking Florida.
In the swamp, baby.
The
And they
swamp is
will
the
not
swamp
drain the
anymore.
swamp Saturday
I
night.
keep forgetting to say this before we start, and I meant to do the ticker. But heading into this week's picks,
We don't really need the ticker.
Yeah, it's
Chad
right,
has
Brett.
the crowd
Right,
at 32-15 so far. I'm at 31-16, just one game behind. And then we got Eric at 27-20 and Brett at 23-24.
You know, you guys sit here
still-
and make
I'm
fun of
still-
my picks every week.
It's too late to copy your picks now.
The light has to shine on a, you know how that finishes up. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for 5 weeks in a row. the light's shining. Okay.
So our
Right.
next game, number 4 Tennessee. I decided to give you guys a layup pick this week. Number 4 Tennessee at 4-0 is at Arkansas, where
It's about damn time.
Yeah.
Arkansas can be dangerous at home. He's 3-2.
Yeah.
Tennessee is 14-point favorite.
It's
Saturday night,
Tennessee.
6:30 game.
Tennessee.
I
can check that
also
one
took
off my list.
Tennessee.
Give me No, Tennessee.
Sorry, Russell. Give me the balls.
Yeah.
That leaves us just one game left for college. Number 10, Michigan, 4-1 at Washington, 3-2. Believe it or not, Washington has been made a 2-point favorite. Another Saturday night primetime NBC game. I saw Mike Palco was in the comment line. We should probably bring him in as a guest picker, but he might have checked out. So I'll start it off. I took Michigan in this game.
Brett?
You know, back when I used to bet on these games, my father, long story, I'll never forget, as a little kid, he would always take an underdog at home when the school would travel all the way across country, because it's a lot on those guys. But not in this one.
Yeah.
Michigan too big, too strong. Washington is not the Kalen DeBoer Washington. Michigan by 10.
Give me the Wolverines.
Eric,
Michigan.
are you gonna break the?
Michigan.
You know, and again, you wonder. Vegas has typically, when the line don't make sense, like how is Washington a 2-point favorite here?
So basically, usually when teams are even, okay, the 3 points will go to the home team. I'm looking at it as they're not even getting 3 points at home. That's why I went with Michigan. Usually, if they consider teams to be even, the home team gets the 3 points in college.
You're right.
But since they're not even getting the 3 points, that's what made me lean toward Michigan.
So that's gonna conclude hour number 1. When we come back, it's time to dive into the NFL. We'll be right back.
And that's the bottom line. want a war, you're going to get one.
The cream rises to the top. Oh, yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Eighty, what you gonna do today?
I got my A game.
You got your A game?
Hey, game.
He got his A game.
All right.
Listen, there's we got to make some adjustments here. Okay.
You can make adjustments after you don't know how many years I've had to swallow in mediocrity. that
We're
you
Bears
can-
fans. What are you
can
talking
bet-
about?
You can
Yeah.
bet your ass.
We dream about
You
mediocrity.
can bet your ass that the first time I get a chance to strut, I'm gonna strut because who knows how long before it happens again.
Oh my God, he's
So
so
He
don't
says
rain
he
on my, don't rain on my
You're-
parade. Don't
you're
rain.
out
Hey.
of pocket.
Ed says
Bye.
he's King Rooster. Just deal with it.
Yeah, right. Unbelievable. Good
So
Lord.
again, to
Jolene
start off
must
this
pump him up.
segment, I just wanted to let you guys see once again the look on the faces of all the Packer fans when they lost to the Minnesota Vikings on their home Lambeau Field. Right there. That was a typical Packer fan.
No, that's a picture of yours truly in the fourth quarter of Saturday night's game.
Right before that 80-yard touchdown pass, right?
Oh, I was yeah.
So let's unveil. I know that we're all waiting with bated breath to see Big Daddy Ed's NFL power rankings.
Are they number one?
Number 5.
As they
Nope.
should be.
So here we
Nope.
go.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Hey, can I share this real quick, Ed? I don't know if you saw on the bottom line, but I did a poll and shared it to our NFL groups that allow us to work with them. And I said, as of today, if Minnesota and Kansas City played each other in a neutral field, neutral site, who would win the game? And Minnesota right now is leading said poll after about 170 votes.
Yeah, Kansas City's offense is just
Whew.
terrible.
We're going to talk about Kansas City after
I would
this.
have to agree, but out of pure respect, I put them at number 1 because to be the man, you got to beat the man. And nobody has beat the man yet this year. So until they get beat, being a chance to be the first team to three-peat, they deserve to be at the number 1 hole. So that's where they're at. How long they can sustain with all the guys that they have dropping like flies. I'm sure.
You see, your buddy put some Minnesota stuff on there for you, though.
I'm sure,
I was thinking about you.
I'm sure Devontae Adams is only wishing right now that Kansas City would give him a call, but we'll see.
His salary cap is way too big for him.
And so currently between in the number 2, number 3 hole, I kept having Detroit at 2. I kept putting Detroit at number 2, and then I got to thinking to myself, if Minnesota and Detroit played today, what would be the spread? I got to believe the spread would be single digits. What clear advantage does Minnesota have over Detroit?
Defense.
They have a head coach that will kick a damn field goal. So in a field goal
Amen.
game, I feel pretty good about the fact that Minnesota is going to kick a field goal when they need to kick a field goal versus Detroit.
Yeah.
That's why I put Minnesota at number 2, plus the fact that I think as good as Detroit's offense is, and when you have a quarterback stand in the pocket in prime time on Monday night and go 18 for 18, it's hard to argue with that team, but Detroit's defense had way too many holes. Seattle was going up and down the field on them. I got to say, at this point, I think Minnesota's defense is just a little bit better than Detroit. So that was the final clincher to put Minnesota at 2 and Detroit number 3. San Francisco starting to get some of their guys back. I know Debo's back. San Francisco is just a solid team. Even though they're 2-2 at this point, I still feel pretty good about having them at number 4. Baltimore. Man, they've been all over my rankings. I guess I have them at number 5. It's hard to argue putting them above Buffalo after the ass whooping they gave them the other night. But just as quick as I have Baltimore at 5 and Buffalo at 6, Buffalo goes to Houston, where I have Houston slotted just below Buffalo. You know, the game's at Houston. That's a big game for both teams to keep that one-loss dream alive. But oh boy, that's tough when you get in this range. And then again, you know, when you look at Tampa Bay at 8, Seattle 9, Green Bay 10, and Washington 11, those 4 are interchangeable. But Washington is just too new for me. I think that the more and more you see Daniels film on Daniels, I got to think they're gonna maybe start slowing him down a little bit. Showing him as a rookie, and just when I'm ready to lose my faith in Tampa Bay, and Jeff Barnes' prediction of Tampa Bay, just when I was ready to lose faith in Tampa Bay, they put a beat down on Philadelphia. Philadelphia boys, they've got some trouble. They've got some problems on that team.
Very lucky to not be 1-3 right now. Very lucky.
Absolutely. And Pittsburgh, again, just, my fear with Pittsburgh is they don't have the offense to match the defense. And unfortunately, that held true this last weekend. So Green Bay, as much as I wanted to really give them a dive, because you look at that Minnesota game, 28-0 at one point in that game. Minnesota gives up a cheap touchdown right before half. Green Bay gets a second half kickoff, goes down and scores. So you turn a 28-0 into a lot closer game from the get-go. But what I don't think people realize that game is Green Bay was missing 2 of their quarterbacks for that game. So as bad as Green Bay's defense looked in that first half, I sometimes wonder if maybe Green Bay would have been able to slow Minnesota down a little bit if they had their starting defense in there. But I'll say it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Minnesota, that second half, it's one thing to go into a prevent defense in the fourth quarter with 3 or 4 minutes left. It's another thing to go into a prevent defense the whole frickin' second half. And not only that, but at the same time you go into a prevent defense, your offense goes into a we don't need to score mode. We just need to keep the clock running mode. And they basically went through that whole third quarter just basically inept on offense. After they literally, the first half went down the field, every possession of that first half and put points on the board. So when you guys can explain to me in today's world, after 50 years of football plus, why the NFL even spells prevent defense anymore. I just don't get it. The rest of the top 16, Philadelphia, Dallas, Atlanta, Cincinnati, you could move them around any way you want to move them around. It really, I don't think at this point of the season, really any of those four are going to be in the hunt at the end. Philadelphia, they got a bye week coming up, and I tell you what, they drop another game, I wouldn't be so sure that they're not switching head coaches during the bye week. So in a nutshell, that's my top 16 for week number 5. Go ahead and tear it apart.
Go ahead, Chad.
I think there's so much parity. I think any one of those top 8 teams could beat any of the others at any moment. I know there's no team out there that is screaming to me, we are the team to beat. Despite the magicalness of your Minnesota Vikings, none of them are taking the bull by the horns. That's my opinion.
See, I 100% disagree with Chad, and this is why I would have Minnesota in the number 1 spot. They're the only team right now that looks to be firing on all cylinders. I mean, you could talk about Kansas City's defense. Great. Okay, Spags has them rolling. Awesome. They won a 17-10 game this week. Okay. But Minnesota plays defense, unless they go into the prevent, then it doesn't work out. But they also have an offense that's rolling. Now, I wouldn't say all 3 phases, because the third phase special teams is what gave the Packers that touchdown at the end of the half. But to me, when I look at those first 8 teams on the left side there, and I look at the first, 3 teams on the right side there, I would say, 10 of them I would agree with. But I think Kansas City has a big offensive flaw. Something's not going right there. Patrick Mahomes has, what does he have, 6 interceptions this year? I mean, already? That's crazy. Offensively, there's definitely problems in Kansas City.
So you're saying right now, Minnesota is Super Bowl bound.
Well, look at if you look at Minnesota's win. Look at
You're saying Minnesota's Super Bowl bound.
Listen. Let's
Minnesota's win.
Minnesota's played the best ball of anyone.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but
Minnesota's got a win over San Francisco, Houston, and Green Bay. All of which are in the top 10.
3 top 10 teams.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not saying I'm not saying we throw the crown on them and say they're Super Bowl champions right now. But I'm telling you right now, I don't think it's even close. Minnesota is playing the best overall football of all teams up there, because I
disagree with you.
Well, but that's what I'm saying.
Are they head and shoulders above everybody else?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you why. I can look at Kansas City, offense is a problem. I look at Detroit, defense is a problem. I look at San Francisco, injuries are a problem. Now, I'm not saying San Francisco won't be there at the end. I'm just saying right now. Baltimore, you never know what you're going to get. Coin flip. Yeah. Okay. Buffalo, man, they looked like the team that was going to be. I mean, honestly, God, I thought if Buffalo beat Baltimore this week, I thought for sure the power rankings would go Minnesota, Buffalo, Kansas City. That's how I would have put it this week had Buffalo won that game.
But
they didn't.
Buffalo can't play all their games at home. They
got
to be able to play on the road.
That's right.
Baltimore showed the rest of the league how to beat Buffalo, and that's to be able to run the ball.
Yes, and you look at Houston. Houston does not look like the same team that they were last year. There's something going on there that is a little bit off.
We need to go back.
Diggs.
So you're saying Sam Darnold is quarterbacking this team to the NFC Championship game?
Right now,
yeah.
Right now, I'd have to say you put Minnesota there. Now, could Minnesota go 4-12 the rest of the year? Absolutely.
Okay.
But right now,
you should go down to the casino and put a bet on that.
Yeah, just like when somebody says Arizona is going to win 9-10 games, where are they at in the top 16? They're not even there. What I'm saying is, if you'd have said 3 years ago, this season, 2 seasons ago, that San Francisco would be the NFC Championship game with some unknown quarterback from Iowa State called Brock Purdy, you would have said
Sam Darnold is
casino.
not an unknown quarterback.
I get that. But you look at what Sam Darnold has done with actual coaching. I mean, where was he at before?
Okay.
The Jets? The Jets are a dumpster fire with Aaron Rodgers.
Carolina.
Dumpster fire. And then Carolina? Oh, I can't believe that Sam Darnold did not shine in Carolina, for crying out loud.
You know what Sam
giving
Darnold
Minnesota credit
actually
here.
said? Sam Darnold actually said that he got the best coaching so far in the NFL from Brock Purdy sitting behind him in San Francisco last year.
Yeah. So when you
what does that say about the coaching he's got so far in his career if he has to relate to another football player to do the coaching?
It reiterates to us what we've talked about on this show before.
What I'm saying is you guys are living in the moment and you're not looking at the entire season.
Well, yeah, but they're playing the best
Well,
football of anybody right
long
now.
are you going to dock a player? I don't care if it's Sam Darnold or name the quarterback. How long does a player's present performance going to get docked by what they did 2-3 years ago?
For the Jets in Carolina. I mean, here's
Most
the
of
deal.
those franchises are dumpster fires. That's like saying, look at Baker Mayfield once he got away from Cleveland. Cleveland, where quarterbacks go to die. I mean,
and actually, he beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in a playoff game in Cleveland. So now, this is exactly right now. Yeah, I mean, we can't go any farther than that because all we have is what's on the plate now. But I'm telling you right now, Minnesota. When you look down, you look at Tampa Bay.
Minnesota's been impressive.
I'm not saying Minnesota isn't playing the best football right now. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you guys think that Minnesota is going to the Super Bowl or to the NFC Championship game, y'all are smoking dope.
I feel like, you're probably right, Chad, because San Francisco is going to get healthy. They're going to be better. They're going to be there at the end. Well, maybe not, but if they do, San Francisco will be there. Green Bay, when Jordan Love comes back and they get their
Green Bay does look pretty good.
Green Bay is going to be there. Make no mistake there.
Yeah.
But the odds of Minnesota going to the NFC Championship, let's say, are better than the odds of Arizona going 9-10. So when you talk about smoking crack, going to the casino, I mean, Minnesota is a complete team. And whether you like it or not, Sam Darnold is leading that. He's not making mistakes. He's making the plays.
It all comes down to when the playoffs start.
Who's hot? Who's healthy?
Are they going to be playing at home or are they going to be playing on the road?
Okay.
Oh, 100%.
And his first dumpster fire game, how are you going to handle that?
Well, we're going to have a whole new intro. We're probably going to get to talk football for 5 more minutes because I'm telling you what,
Sam
as long
Darnold
as Minnesota keeps winning, I'm going to keep putting up more and more stuff because, again, being a Packer fan is not fun right now when you lose to the Minnesota Vikings at Lambeau Field.
How about this? Malik Willis, 2-0. Jordan Love, 0-2.
So here's the question. Was Green Bay better served to give Jordan Love another week to get healthy and let Malik Willis handle that game last week? Because face it, when they were playing that game, they kept showing Jordan Love not able to follow through on his throws. And there was even one play that he took a sack or got knocked down where it looked like he re-injured himself.
Oh, yeah.
He shouldn't have been out there. I was surprised they played him.
So, when they put Malik Willis out there for 2 weeks in a row, do you really think in their heart of hearts, if you really could have put an iron to the fire and made them say it, that they thought they would win both those games with Malik Willis as quarterback?
No.
Hell no. So when they were already 2-1 and they had the opportunity to look at the big picture and make sure that Jordan Love was completely healthy for the long haul,
Yeah.
there's no way in hell he should have played that game.
No.
I don't care what
Now-
fan you are.
But
Jordan Love should have never played that game last
I
week.
100% agree with you, but I would tell you this. There's one reason and one reason only that they did it. They were at home and it was Minnesota. If they're at home against Tennessee or Indianapolis or Carolina or whatever, I got news for you. Jordan Love does not trot out there.
If
they're
they're
at home
if it's
against
San
Minnesota.
Francisco, does he play?
No, because it's not a division game. If it was Detroit or Chicago, and obviously it was Minnesota, they tried him out there. If it's anybody else, I don't think they do.
I don't think they put him out there for Chicago. I don't.
I think they
they're
do.
I don't think they're worried about Chicago.
No, they don't have to be. But the only nice thing for us is we don't play any of our division opponents until the end of the year. So if Caleb Williams can get it figured out and continue to take steps forward as he has, maybe Chicago will be better at the end.
Yeah,
So,
true.
So having said that, that's enough of the rankings. I want to get into this topic, and I'll start it off. We have a team that arguably at the beginning of the season was considered a playoff team. If not a playoff team, they were definitely a playoff contender. You know, Tua's history of concussions, you would think at the very least they would have positioned themselves to have a quality backup quarterback to fall back on.
Yep.
To me, it is just it's just unreal.
It's reprehensible.
It's unbelievable that you have a team, NFL team, that did not back themselves up with any better of a quarterback, because once Tua went down, Miami is you just stick a fork in them.
Yeah.
They don't even have
Are
a
they-
quarterback. I mean, it was embarrassing. The other
Are
night,
they-
their quarterback play was embarrassing.
Are they that afraid of hurting Tua's ego? I mean,
No,
why
you know what I
didn't
think? You know what I think it is, Chad? I think they were afraid, and we'll talk about this in our hot topics. I think they were afraid of bringing in a guy like Joe Flacco or somebody, who's maybe.
That's what I'm saying.
I think
his
they were
ego.
afraid that they would bring Joe Flacco in and go, holy crap, and have a Kyle Shanahan moment. Walk into the front office and go, I hate to tell you guys this, but our number 3 quarterback's the best quarterback we got in the room. They did not want to have that moment. I truly believe this because it's the only explanation for it.
Yeah,
How
that's,
can you
that's
have
what I was saying.
Tyreek Hill?
Yeah.
How can you have a Tyreek Hill, a Waddle, those kind of guys that they're basically, you just as well not even play them. I mean, Tyreek Hill, they tried every which way they could to try and get him the ball the other night. And it just made, other than handing him the ball in the backfield and letting him run sweeps or whatever, they couldn't even get him the ball. It was embarrassing.
Yeah. It was, and here's the deal. Talk about piling on Miami. Jalen Phillips, their star pass rusher, is done for the year.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, we have talk about potentially Tyreek Hill wanting to get the hell out of Dodge. Talk about falling apart. I mean, one thing just starts the domino effect. I mean, Miami is, in my opinion, Miami is cooked.
Does Kansas City make that phone call and try and get Tyreek Hill
They
back?
can't.
That's the rumor.
What I heard was they have $4 million in cap space. They can't. They can't.
Well, if you make an actual trade, though, right? They would have to actually give away a commodity to get one. That'd be the only chance they have.
Right. Yeah.
But we've talked about Tua's health at length, and once again, like my brother mentioned, these teams go out and get all these quarterbacks with these, excuse my language, shitty offensive lines. They knew what they were drafting with Tua. A lot of talent, but he's undersized and he's injury prone. Then why do you have? And I understand he got injured on the particular play scrambling, but they don't have a very good offensive line. What I mean, they're at fault in many areas of their football team, in my opinion. I mean, you knew what you was getting when you're drafting him. He's not Josh Allen. He's not 6'3", 240 pounds, that can take a lick. He's not that guy.
How can you have a Tyreek Hill, a Waddle, and A-Train, or whatever the hell how you pronounce it, and just have everyone be irrelevant with one injury? To me, it just shows that management just totally screwed the pooch.
I'm with Eric. I think the Dolphins are fixing to absolutely collapse.
Yeah,
their offensive line is mid-pack.
I mean, are they in a position to draft a different quarterback? I mean, it's going to be interesting.
So
what do? They put him on IR. He's been cleared. They put him on injured reserve, so he's done till week 8. He's done.
And he just signed a new contract.
Yeah, he just signed a big contract.
Yeah. Was it $50 million? $50 million for a very breakable guy?
What they have to hope for is at the end of the season he retires, and then
that's
so much.
Yes, but I mean, I can't believe
they have to go out and get something new.
I think he's one concussion away from being forced out.
I think I do too. Well, I don't know if he's forced out, but maybe.
Well, they said today.
Does Tua come back wearing the Guardian cap? That's a subject that I thought about.
They said today that Tua is back to showing no signs of a concussion, and as soon as his IR stint is over, he will be back in the starting lineup. So he's already made his decision that he's coming back.
This is what he has.
But do you really think he's going to go the rest of the season without getting another one?
This is what irritates me about all of this concussion talk and things like that, and all these former players and things coming back and talking about the injuries. And I mean, it affected the Bears. Dave Duerson had serious issues. Okay.
Right.
He ended up committing suicide. I feel for his family and
look at Jim McMahon. Look at the hell he's went through.
But what I'm saying is, when you have players that are willing, like a Tua, to sit there and continue to take the beating, you know what you're getting into. You know what you're getting into.
Right.
You know what you're up for. I mean, you can't blame the NFL or anybody else. Tua, from here on out, if Tua's 50 and he comes out and says, "Man, I got all sorts of brain damage, NFL, da da da," that's wrong. Like you have a choice, and you had a choice, and you chose money. You chose playing over your health, which that's okay. That's your choice. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's your choice. And they maybe not have as much information back in the 80s and the early 90s as they do now. That's fine. But these guys have a choice. And we've seen players walk away from the game at 26, 27, 28. Tua, man, what's more important to you, man, the money or your health? I mean, how many concussions has he had? Brett, you would know this better than any of us. How many concussions is that dude
that we're aware of?
4?
4 or 5 that we're aware of.
Yeah. I mean, that's craziness.
But keep in mind, fellas, back in the 80s and 90s when we grew up watching the game and all that, I mean, the helmets they wore then, how they played.
Well, I love Jim McMahon. I love him. But come on, everybody knows, what did he do after they scored every touchdown? What did he do?
Oh, he headbutted
285-pound lineman and headbutted him as hard as he could. That's on you, you moron.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that at 15, 16, 17 watching that game. I'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's true. And here's the deal. These guys understand. It's like you go into the game of football not understanding that it could be potentially dangerous. It is. You can't tell me that even in the mid-'80s, They didn't know that the shots they were taking to their heads was not good for them. They knew that.
Well, it's interesting. So, as you know, I love Australian rules football, and a very prominent player had to retire this year, medically retired. So the league told him, "You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. No more footy for you."
Can the NFL step in and do that though?
If they don't, they can't now. But I would say this. I would say the NFL needs to take a serious look at this, and Tua needs to be like the poster child for this. There needs to be something that the NFL does that says, look, when you get to the point that Tua is, here is a chunk of money, a buyout or whatever, you are done. Because, you know, guys are guys. It's like, I'm tough. I can do that. Like, listen, man, enough is enough. Like,
men are men for a million years.
Yes, and they're going to do dumb stuff for a million more. But
so what you're saying is somebody needs to maybe step in and put a stop to it for him.
Correct, because I'm tired. I'm tired of players coming back and saying the NFL did this to me. Well, what did you think was going to happen? You know, and Brett Favre came out, I don't know, a week ago or so, and said, I have Parkinson's, and they believe that it was due to the amount of hits that I took.
No doubt.
So the one who always wanted to come back in and play.
Right. And while I feel bad for him getting Parkinson's, and I don't wish that on anybody, like, listen, when you play a violent game, and the NFL is a violent game, you should, at least I would think, you would go into that saying, I understand the potential repercussions,
consequences
for the game that I am playing.
Steve, look at Mongo. You know, you saw the 46 special of him and Buddy Ryan and Richard Dent, Mike Singletary, and this was before he knew he had ALS. He still looked like Mongo, and he said all the pain and stuff I put my body through. And, you know, pretty much said, would I do it again? And he said, hell yes, I would.
Yeah.
And even though in the position he's in now, that man with the heart that he has, if you asked him today, he'd probably say, yes, I'd do it again.
So blaming the NFL just doesn't work for me.
So moving on to the next subject, let's talk about this. After post-game press conference, after the Raiders game last week, Antonio Pierce comes up to the podium and says, we had players out there today that made business decisions. I guess we need to make some business decisions of our own. And wouldn't you know that this week, right after he makes that comment, we're in Davante Adams drama again, where he comes up with this mysterious injury that they can take him out of the out of the starting role. So don't kid yourself. They got him on this. They got him sidelined with a supposed injury, so that
it's always the receivers.
They can talk to the other teams about making a possible deal at the trade deadline for Davante Adams. So rumor has it he wants to play for New Orleans, or he wants to play for the Jets. So, you know, of course, those are the two quarterbacks that he's played with here recently.
Big cap hit.
So let's go around. I'll start with Eric. What do you think? What do you think the future holds for Davante Adams?
This is a layered problem. I mean, I know Antonio Pierce was kind of, he's the interim head coach last year. It's falling in love with the interim head coach, but he liked to tweet.
Yeah.
That said, I've played my last snap for Las Vegas. I mean, come on, dude.
And the head coach liked it.
Like, I understand that. Well, Davante Adams is hurt. I have, my other players, we're getting ready for Denver. I mean, okay, but that's not how you go. That's just not how you go about it. I hate the fact that we have NFL head coaches on Twitter and all these other things. Like, there's only 32 of them in the world. Okay. So there's expectations on 32 people in this world that things like that are not going to happen. And the fact that it happened with Antonio Pierce tells me that he's not head coach material. That stuff cannot happen. And then the second thing, we've talked about this at length on the show, so I'm not going to dwell on it too long, but here's another diva receiver. He followed Carr to the Raiders. It was his quarterback, man. The Raiders, right? Well, Carr leaves. Now Adams wants out again. Like the thing that bothers me the most about the NFL is, you think about a lot of the old players. How many of the old players, whether it be Minnesota or Chicago, that they played the majority of their career for your team? It was only after they got replaced. Jim McMahon went, he floated around for a few years afterwards. I think Richard Dent went to the 49ers. I think McMichael actually ended up on the Packers for a year or whatever. You got those guys that leave at the end, but they played their majority of their career at one team. Now you have all these NFL players that, man, as soon as their rookie deal's over with, I got no loyalty to San Francisco or Green Bay or Chicago or
it's
whatever.
in every sport.
I'm freaking out of here, man. And so it's kind of hardened me to guys like Davante Adams, where I'm like, screw you. I don't care. Okay, you made tons of money. You're worth more money than I'll ever make in my life, and I don't care. Don't whine to me about how screwed over you are, how, this situation, that situation. You made it the situation that you made it. Ask yourself this. Were you all in? My guess is probably not. Are you a good teammate? My guess is if you had to put the Raiders to the fire, they'd be like, I don't really like the guy. Some of them anyway. You start asking those questions. That's on you, dude. Like, I don't want to sit here and listen to you about, the Raiders this and the Raiders that. Like, you chose to come to the Raiders. You come to the Raiders. Were the Raiders really good when you got there? Previously? For how long? No. But you chose to go there.
Chad,
So,
what do you think?
I don't want to hear it.
Well, I mean, the loyalty discussion is always very interesting to me, because now, are you right about, did he ask to go there so he could play with his college quarterback and his best friend and all that? Yes, he did. But the loyalty thing always cracks me up when fans complain about the players not having loyalty, because I tell you one thing's for sure. The teams have no fucking loyalty to any of these players. They will cut them without even dropping a blink, not caring one little bit. So I never, ever put loyalty on players, because the teams show them zero loyalty. They hit 28.
I'm looking for the swear jar.
They put 28. They hit 28, and the teams are looking to get rid of them. They're done. And then they got to go someplace else. I wanted to play my whole career here. Don't care. Go. The team's zero loyalty. So I don't buy that argument. That argument is lame and crap, in my opinion. These players owe these teams zero loyalty, because the teams show them less than zero loyalty.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
So now, to wrap it up, he did make this bet. He wanted to go there. He wanted to play with his college buddy, and then his college buddy gets cut the next year. And you had to have all this money, which I don't blame you, but now you're a giant cap hit. So you can't just get traded anywhere in mid-season because there's no cap space.
Well,
So
evidently,
you have very
Derek
limited
Carr.
options to where they're going to trade you.
Well, evidently, Derek Carr didn't have that same sentimental attraction that Davante Adams had, because, Derek Carr couldn't get out of Las Vegas fast enough.
Right?
When he had his disputes, so
They cut him.
he kind of they may have cut him, but that marriage was over before
He was already out the
thing
door
ever
down the
happened.
road.
So,
Yeah, because he
And
knew
that's
they were
another
cutting.
franchise that's just a total mess.
I mean, every year the Raiders, and again, this year the Raiders will finish 500. Everybody will think next year's the year. Next year will come around. They'll stumble their way through the season. They'll end strong, 500 again. That's just what their franchise does. They're a 500 franchise that keeps reeling you in every year, but they just never can get over the hump.
What do you think, Brett?
It's like we've talked about before. It's always the receivers. It always seems to be the receivers. And I go back to the money. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you guys have got a computer pulled up. What is the guy making right now?
I can tell you real quick.
I mean,
My guess is he's making
Devontae Adams, I think it's like $25 million a year, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's $25 million a year.
so
Yeah,
he's
Devontae
bidding-
Adams.
$1 million cap hit.
He signed a 5-year, $140 million contract. So it is about
28.
just
So he's
just
getting
under 30.
He's getting
Just under
$28 million a year, which at the time he signed it made him one of the top receivers in the
Now,
National Football League.
Here's the hit. $19.25 million signing bonus and $65.67 million guaranteed.
Shut the hell up and take your money. I mean, let's just be real. Look, we all have wants and needs, and no, I don't want to go to this. I don't want to get up and go to work in the morning. Like, I've been sick, so I still had to work today. I work from home mainly, but you will never, ever, ever have to want for anything again unless you piss all this money away on stupid stuff.
That's what happens.
Just deal with it. I mean,
Okay.
look, make the best out of it. There's, maybe the Raiders will luck up and we'll have a couple good drafts in a row. And that way you've been with the franchise. It's bouncing around, and you've got a guy that's got a $140 million contract, $65 million guaranteed, and he's unhappy. Well, boo-hoo. I mean,
Right.
So let's hit one more topic before we get into picks. You're
I
the
wish I was that
Indianapolis
unhappy.
Colts. You're
Right.
the Indianapolis Colts. And again, his rookie year, he gets hurt, misses most of the season. Second year, he beefs up to 255 pounds before training camp. We're supposed to see the new and improved Anthony Richardson. Here we are, a few games into the season, gets a hip pointer, and he's already out again. Joe Flacco comes in and takes the Colts to a victory. If you are the Colts franchise, are you sitting Anthony Richardson and saying, you know what, get healthy, watch a few games from the sideline. We're going to see what Joe Flacco can do to save our season. Who are you going with? You going with Flacco, or are you going with Richardson if you're the Colts going forward? Brett, you can go first.
I mean, he was your first round draft pick, and this is I seem to be better at picking quarterbacks in drafts than I do games. I saw this when they drafted him. I run an SEC group, and got a couple of Florida fans that we always chat back and forth in the admin chat. And none of us that wasn't Florida fans could see that this guy was a first rounder. And what you're seeing now with him being like this, health wise, and his play was the same way he was at Florida. I think he caught fire at the training combine. He jumped higher, ran faster. Like, man, he's got it. And all these scouts fell in love with him. But I go back to what Dennis Green with the Arizona Cardinals. He was who we thought he was. He's, and I hope I'm wrong because I ain't got nothing against the kid, but he's a bust. He's a bust. He's a bust. And if he stayed healthy, he's a bust. He was never a first round quarterback. The scouts that had him at that first round grade because he had a good combine. They obviously didn't watch any tape of him playing because I don't know what you do with him. I mean,
the Colts
but by now, if you've got anything between your ears and your Colts front office, you realize you made a big mistake because he is not a first round quarterback.
Probably, at the very least, with Texas being in the division and being as strong as they are, chances are the Colts are going for maybe a wild card spot because I certainly don't think they have what it takes to win the division.
No.
But Chad, what do you think? If you're management, are you sitting Richardson down to let him heal and maybe watch a few games from the sideline and see if Flacco can pull out a playoff spot? Or are you, as soon as Richardson can, get him back in the lineup? What do you think?
I'm putting the old man out there. I didn't understand everybody's love for this. So Ed and I are big fantasy football guys. So the amount of fantasy football people that were ranking him in their top 4 or 5 fantasy quarterbacks, I was like, what are we talking about? He couldn't complete 4 games, and he was a monster. He was huge. He was already 240 pounds and 6'4", and he couldn't handle it then. And he couldn't make up 4 games. I knew he wasn't going to make it a couple of games. He was going to get hurt. He's just going to get hurt again. Now, as far as his play goes, I don't know. I didn't watch much of the first couple of games where he actually played, so I don't know how his play was. I'll take Brett's word for it that it wasn't good, and I heard it wasn't good coming out of Florida. He was just a big, strong, fast kid who can run and do all kinds of things, and they were hoping to be able to get him to pass the ball. Like
they
Josh
lost
Allen.
their minds with him at the combine.
Yeah. So I'm saying sitting, and then Flacco, maybe he gets hurt, in 5 or 6 weeks, and the kid's healed up, and the kid's maybe he's learned something sitting back there. Maybe he realizes, I can't bowl over everybody. I can't, I have to make sharp throws. Maybe he learned something. I don't know. Maybe he Sam Darnold's it and has this epiphany and comes out and plays really well. But I'm putting the old man out there.
Eric, why don't you take the final word, then we'll get into our picks.
Well, you can't, with the NFL philosophy nowadays, unfortunately, I agree with Chad. They should put the old man out there, especially after what he did for Cleveland last year coming in. But NFL philosophy that's just not going to happen. Anthony Richardson is going to play. I agree with what both of you said. But the Colts, it almost becomes from a general manager standpoint, instead of cutting your losses, instead of saying this is what we need to do for this kid, I want to be right. I'm going to show you that I was right. And they keep trotting him out there, That's not just Anthony Richardson. That's a lot of quarterbacks. And they don't get the time that they need. To sit there and learn the game. They get thrown into the fire and whatever. And I think Anthony Richardson was probably one of those quarterbacks. I don't know if he sits for 3 years and then becomes a great NFL quarterback. I can't make that statement. But right now, he's just not a very good quarterback. And I think so the Colts find themselves in that rock and a hard place where we drafted him as the quarterback of the future. We played him. And just like the mindset of every other NFL team, aside from the San Francisco 49ers, we've got to play him. And so, unfortunately, they're going to play him. And when he gets healthy, however many games that is, if Flacco plays for 2, 3, 4 games, whatever it is, they're going to play him. And, Flacco looked good against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's a good defense. And Flacco put up 27 points on them. It just goes to show you when you take an old quarterback like that, what they know. Their body may not be there anymore, but what's up here in an old quarterback's head compared to a young guy with all the tools, like Brett said, he can jump out, he can run fast, he's 240, 6'4", What's in the old quarterback's head can make it happen.
That's the hilarious part about the Flacco thing is last year and then this last weekend, I mean, all the Baltimore people are like, where was that the last couple of years he was in Baltimore? Why has he gotten so much older and playing
Right.
so much better? I mean,
Right.
that also makes zero sense to me. It's crazy.
Well, I think you owe it. I think you owe it to the fan base. You know, paying their hard-earned money to buy tickets to see a winner. I think you owe it to the fan base to play Flacco and see what you can make out of this season, and just give Richardson a chance to hold the clipboard, get healthy, and maybe we try it again next year, or you can take over for Flacco if he gets hurt. But I think you got to go with Flacco. So let's get into the picks.
Wait, Ed, before we do the picks, we've got to take 4 minutes. We've got to do the last hot topic. We have somebody who listens to the show religiously. We never bring up the Jacksonville Jaguars. We need to bring up the Jacksonville Jaguars and at least, I mean, are they toast? Is Trevor Lawrence truly a bust?
It doesn't sound like you're doesn't sound like we're asking the question. It pretty much says that
I mean, are they? So is Trevor Lawrence in an Anthony Richardson position?
Well, Trevor Lawrence, they gave him a contract. I mean, when the quarterback money went into the 50+ million range, that pretty much become the barometer for all quarterbacks that are starters. Trevor Lawrence had no business getting the contract that he got. Jacksonville has put themselves in a position to where now what do they do?
Right.
Well, so let's ask this question. Hypothetically, 2024 off season, the Jaguars are in the position Chicago was in, and Chicago is in the position the Jaguars again. So the Jaguars are sitting there with Trevor Lawrence going into his 4th season, going to have to pick up his 5th-year option, or they have the number 1 overall pick and they draft a quarterback. And Chicago's sitting wherever the hell Jacksonville was sitting in the same situation with Caleb or with Justin, and sitting there with no quarterback prospects, no high draft pick, and they are stuck with this 4-year going in the 4th year and to pick up the 5th year. I think they cut Trevor or trade him and they draft a quarterback.
Well,
am I wrong?
Well, I think I don't know. Joel is actually on. This is why. This is my athletic director here at the high school, and he is an avid Jacksonville Jaguars fan. Here's the problem. Do we believe that it is Trevor Lawrence's fault? Do we believe that it is Doug Peterson's fault? Or is it a combination of things where it's never going to work? I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line is 23rd in the NFL out of 32. So he's not taking snaps behind a real great line. So where do we see the problem?
Well,
and I'll ask Brett,
can I interject this?
Brett, where do you see the problem in Jacksonville, Brett? Where do you see the problem in Jacksonville?
All right. The last year and a half, you know who's got higher passer rating than Lawrence? Daniel Jones with the Giants. Cut ties. I hate to say it, and I'm a Bears fan, Joel, so I feel your pain. We've had to restart and reshuffle about every other year.
They just signed into a big extension. They can't.
They can't. That's the problem.
But you can't say. I mean, you can talk about Doug Peterson as well, though. You know, he had success with Philadelphia. He had success with Jacksonville. He took him to the playoffs last year. So, do you tell me that it's Doug Peterson's fault? I mean,
you can try to improve the offensive line, but
Jacksonville,
the passer rating is the passer rating.
When you can't win a game in the NFL. What is it, 9 in a row now or something?
Yeah.
Eventually, It's got to be something. But
Here is Trevor Lawrence's stats in his 0-9 in his last 9 games. 14 touchdowns, 11 turnovers, and he's been sacked 22 times.
Well, again, you've got a team, you draft a good quarterback or you think's a good quarterback, and you don't build an offensive line around him. I mean,
but those are Justin Fields numbers, and the Bears cut bait.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's my hypothetical question in the beginning was that they would have traded or cut him in the offseason, and they would have drafted a quarterback at number 1. So Trevor, for all intents and purposes, is a bust, but he is getting bank bust. The kid is making out like a bandit, and Jacksonville and the fans are going to have to suffer for it. Can he be salvaged at some point? Maybe. I don't think an offensive line, from what I've seen, you could put him behind the Philadelphia offensive line, and he's not going to play any better than he's playing right now.
But the thing that I ask you is this, and I'm not on one side of the fence or the other. I can look at a lot of teams, and I can look at Minnesota, not my team. Jefferson, Addison, Jones, and Darnold's playing out of his mind. San Francisco, Purdy, McCaffrey when he's not hurt, Debo, Ayuk, Jennings now. I mean, I can go through all these teams. Tell me who Jacksonville has that Trevor Lawrence is going to. Like, who are their standout? Like who's their number 1? Who's their running back? Like, who are their standouts?
Travis Etienne, who's considered one of the best running backs in the league.
Okay.
You've got Christian Kirk, who's a very consistent professional wide receiver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis, now he's Captain Vanishing. I'm here, no, I'm not. And they spent a really good draft pick on Brian Thomas Jr., who's shown some promise. I've seen him make some catches. He looks pretty decent. And they have old man Evan Ingram out there who does pretty good. Now, is it great skill position players? No, but not too many teams have great. Is it good? Yeah, it's good.
Do you know what's alarming to me is the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this is, if I was Joel, this would tick me off the most. Prior to the season, he came out and he said, and I quote, "This is the best team we have ever assembled in Jacksonville."
That's a lie.
I mean, that to me, that's why I brought the question to you guys. Was
maybe since he's on the team,
maybe, but that's why I brought the question to you guys. Like, what does Jacksonville have then? Like, they have good skill position guys, but man, Etienne's good. He's not great.
But I mean, both lines of scrimmage. Their defense is.
Well, there are not too many great running backs in the NFL. He's good, and he's very good.
Right, but I will tell you, Saquon Barkley going to Philadelphia. Saquon's great. Philadelphia is just
yes.
You know.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, what are the answers? What's the answer in Jacksonville, Joel? We cannot give you an answer other than right now it feels like a complete dumpster fire. Do I think Trevor Lawrence? If you were to put, and so here's a question for you: if you take Trevor Lawrence, you take him away from Jacksonville, and you put him in, take Brock Purdy and he disappears. You put Trevor Lawrence. Is Trevor Lawrence a better quarterback in San Francisco?
No.
Okay. I'm just asking. I don't have an answer for that.
Joel, here's my advice to you, buddy. Go to your local Catholic church. If you're not Catholic, that's fine. Go in. They have a whole bunch of candles, light like 4 of them, and say some prayers. And if the priest is there, try and get a high five from the priest. I'm not Catholic, but I'm not beyond doing something like that. I'm half Catholic.
Joel, I apologize. This is
all right. Let's get to the picks.
Let's get to the picks.
So here we go. First game, Thursday night on Prime Video. Tampa Bay 3-1 at Atlanta 2-2. Atlanta somehow is a 1.5 point favorite. I am taking Tampa Bay.
I have Tampa Bay.
Give me the
That-
Bucks.
Brett?
Atlanta.
Oh man. No wonder you're like 17-20.
It's all right.
23-24.
Next game, the first London game of the season.
Minnesota. Oh wait.
The 2-2 Jets
Ki-
plays Minnesota, who's 4-0. Minnesota is a 2.5 point favorite. Sunday morning at the early time of 8:30.
Can you even believe this line? Is this an Aaron Rodgers deal? Like, how can the line be 2.5? Is it because it's neutral? Is it because
Well,
it's
but-
not at
If you
Minnesota?
looked at it a week ago, the Jets were 2.5 point favorites.
But how?
I don't know.
I mean, how?
You got Aaron Rodgers against Sam freaking Darnold.
But the way Minnesota's playing as a
No,
team,
I agree.
I mean, the Jets just got beat by Denver 10-9.
At home.
10-9 at
scares me
home.
that's what scares me about this game is you look at
Yep.
the line and
Yep.
Vegas isn't dumb. So the Vegas has got this line that's just screaming, take Minnesota. That's what's got me worried. But
I'm taking Minnesota. But
Aaron Rodgers is 17-11-1 against the Vikings lifetime.
17-11-1.
Yep.
That's not actually that good if you look at, Minnesota hasn't had that great of teams over the years. So the fact that
Oh, they've had a bunch of playoff teams. Shut up. Don't do
yeah,
that.
we haven't been that good. You just haven't won Super Bowls.
at
You
least
haven't
I'm
won
not,
Super Bowls.
no one can ever accuse me of being a homer. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, Missouri boy. Okay. Having said that, I'm taking the Vikings.
Eric,
I took Minnesota already.
You took
I was the first
Minnesota.
one out, man. I was the first one out.
Vikings.
look at that clean sweep. So you're all saying that you're hoping and praying beyond a shadow of a doubt that our intro does not change next week. That's
Well, I just assumed the
that's
intro
what
changed.
you're all
but
really saying.
yeah,
No, what we're
Yeah.
saying is the Jets are a catastrophe.
yeah, that's what we're saying. They're a dumpster fire.
Baltimore 2-2 at Cincinnati, who's 1-3. Baltimore is only a 1 point favorite in this game. It's a noon game on Sunday. Who wants to go first?
Baltimore.
Yeah, I really want to go Cincinnati, but give me the Ravens.
I want to go Cincinnati, but they don't. There's no D in Cincinnati,
No.
and there's no D in Bengals. So Baltimore.
And
That's
I
the
take
problem.
Baltimore as well. So the next game, Buffalo, who just got beat down like a redheaded stepchild, 3-1, at Houston, who's also 3-1. Buffalo comes into Houston as a 1 point favorite.
Bounce back game for Josh Allen and Buffalo. Something just isn't right in Houston. I'll take Buffalo.
Brett?
I'll take Houston.
Buffalo.
And I am going to take Houston as well. Okay, so next game we got Las Vegas
This is like-
2-2 at Denver, who's 2-2.
Who cares?
Denver is a 2.5 point favorite
Do you have a buddy who's like a Raiders fan? Like, why this game?
because it's less than 3 points. This kid doesn't take any game on our predictions, very rarely, that's more than a couple point difference. That's because that's how we are. That's how we pick games, man. We don't
Yeah, it's
pick,
also got to be a relevant game.
Yeah, I mean,
pick the
let's-
cupcake ones.
I'll take a more relevant game that's maybe 3.5 than this game. But hey, Brett, you go first on this one, Brett, since we're all flipping coins anyway.
Yeah. Bo
Yeah, Henry-
Nix and
If it's going
Denver.
to help you out, Brett, Henry's taking Denver in this game.
I'm taking Denver.
I'm going to jump on a Bronco and ride it in this pathetic crap game.
God, I have to take Denver. I don't want to, but give me Denver.
I'm picking Denver as well.
Great pick there. Good job.
And then our final pick of the week, the consistent in the Super Bowl 1 week, dumpster fire the next week. Dallas 2-2 at Pittsburgh, who dropped their first game of the year last week, is 3-1. They actually have Pittsburgh in a primetime Sunday night game on NBC as a 2-point favorite. Chad.
I'm looking something up here.
No, you can't look something. No. Make your pick.
All-time series, the Cowboys are up 17-16 all time. This is for people Ed and I's age, this is a very famous matchup.
So we've pretty much seen every one, haven't we, Chad?
Yeah. So, having said that, the Steelers draw even 17-17. Steelers get the win.
Dallas. I hate selecting Dallas. It's against everything in my blood, but I have zero confidence in Pittsburgh's offense, and Joe Flacco put 27 up on the Pittsburgh defense. So I guess I can only hope that Dallas does the same, even though I really hate Dallas.
I mean, Dallas can't beat any decent teams, but how decent is Pittsburgh? I mean, they've got a strong defense. Just give me Pittsburgh.
Geez,
You got a quarterback who put a bunch of points up last week.
that was like, I don't know, Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I'm going to take
Dallas is just like, they're going to win against the sorry teams, but then when they play, you think, oh, they're 5-1 or 6-1, and they play a good team and they get smashed every time.
Yeah, but if Dallas scores 20 points, I feel like they win.
Yeah, but if Pittsburgh
Parsons
punches Dak in the mouth right away at the beginning of the game, what kind of game does Dak have? Dak can have a real stinker.
Yeah,
Is
but it's
Mike
regular
Parsons
season.
still out?
It is the regular season.
Bill says Dallas. Henry says Dallas. So, Eric, you're not alone.
I am on this panel, though. Hopefully I can catch a game back up here since we all pretty much took the same. Maybe I can get
So
two
that's
this week.
pretty much going to wrap up another week of the bottom line. The only thing I'd like to say before we get off the air is I was blessed yesterday with grandchild number 6. Hazel May.
Congratulations, Ed. It's all
Hazel
because
May
of you.
Foyer, only my second granddaughter of the 6, was born yesterday morning. She's got more hair than I do.
I don't take much.
Which I don't know, but boy, you talk about chubby cheeks and a face that'll melt every poppy that's out there. So I got the pleasure of meeting my new granddaughter tonight after work before this show, and I tell you what, it sure puts in perspective what should be important in your life, because there's nothing more that you look at this little girl and you can tell she's totally dependent on us to get her going in this world, and I can't wait to see what she becomes. But
It's exciting. Mazel tov.
so and then I found out, what was it, last week or the week before, Chad, that you're going to get to experience number 1.
Yeah, I'm going to get to experience number 1. She's due in March. Here's the funny thing about that. Her due date is March 3rd. March 4th is my daughter and myself. It's our birthday on March 4th. And on the next day, March 5th, is my youngest son's birthday. So we are looking to stack it up.
And Eric was blessed with his first grandchild here, is a couple months ago?
In June. So yeah, it was, it's they talk about, you have your own kids and that's obviously great, but when you have a granddaughter, it kind of changes everything.
Tell you what, it's sure you can try and be as hard as you want to as a parent, as a grandparent, but when someone puts that grandkid in your arms, it turns you into the biggest softy there is.
100%.
But anyway, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy another exciting weekend of football. I can only hope that in the coming weeks, college football actually gets some good matchups going.
They're coming. They are coming.
But yeah, got to think they're coming. So have a great rest of the week. And we'll see you again next Wednesday at same time, same channel. We'll talk to you later.
Peace out.
And that's the bottom line.